Hello, all, and welcome to the GenCast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Travis.
So, what's going on in the U.S. then with the whole Democratic Socialist, Communist side of things?
They're all in the same boat, right? I mean, it's kind of a one party fits all on that extreme left viewpoint. And that's not even, I guess, extreme left. It's just extreme, honestly. Do you,
Yeah,
do
I
you,
actually have noticed that.
okay, so you do agree then that like the
Yeah.
Democrats are very socialist, communist leaning at the very least, right?
More so nowadays than I remember them ever being coming up,
And I mean,
honestly.
I'm a
Like, it's gotten
conservative.
progressive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, progressives are liberals, like in
I was meaning
effect.
progressively worse,
No,
but I stopped so you
no,
could talk.
no. You're not wrong though, because progressives are liberals. It's a progressive view. I mean, from what I've grown up with, we are more divisive than ever as far as parties go. We are more polarized than ever as far as people's views go. I don't know if like social media is to blame to where everything is just like right there at your fingertips. I don't know if that's the reason, or if I don't know if it's just like a mental shift, a mindset change. But it's not good.
I'm a little bit
Like seriously.
more on the social media could potentially be the issue here side of things, just because it kind of gave voices to a lot of people who,
Wouldn't have one?
yeah, yeah,
Okay, yeah, but I understand what you're saying, but like does it all go back to how you were raised, the way you were brought up versus your own opinions? Or is this more serious question now? Is this more like an influx of immigrants that don't share our values and our views as a whole to where things get shifted that far? Because, like, for instance, Republicans honestly don't seem as far right as Democrats seem as far left. It's ridiculous how far left the Democrats seem to be right now. Because I'm not, I'm a conservative, period. That's the simplest way to put it. Probably a conservative independent, in all honesty. But like, since I don't even know, as long as I've grown up, like the last Democrat I actually thought would be okay was actually Bill Clinton, and he won. I'm not saying what he did was great, but what he did wasn't also horrible. That was the last time I thought a Democrat was a good option. Seriously. And I know you didn't live through all that. You weren't
yeah, I
there.
didn't.
You were around with Obama and Biden. I was around with like Reagan, Bush, uh, Clinton, Bush again, like the second Bush, Junior
Yeah,
or third, whatever he was. I can't remember. But it seems like we have moved more to a divisive, polarized party system to where honestly it's just stupid. Seriously.
yeah. I'm gonna spin it back real quick to the social media side to answer a few questions that you brought up. So I do think a lot of people, like at the early stages of social media, like TikTok and everything, going short form effectively with that whole ordeal.
Yeah.
It probably started out with being like, this is how was raised, so these are my views. And then it's evolved from there to like people raised with totally different views are getting fed this new version of media
Yeah. The new
to where
narrative.
it's like, yeah, like they're getting to see multiple different sides, and then one side just says something right at the right time, and they're like, well, I believe in everything you have ever said from now on, even though you only related to me one time.
Yeah.
Like
Because,
I've
Does that make
I've
that
gone through YouTube.
does that
No,
make
it
that
doesn't make
like
it
a
right.
legitimate or like correct viewpoint just because they agreed on one topic or one specific point in time to where your views aligned? Because I mean,
No,
I'll
but
be
think about
like,
the new wave.
yeah, like I just said, it was like back in the 90s, I thought Clinton would actually be good. But granted, at that point, I was what, like 15, 16, somewhere along in there. So it wasn't like I was old enough to matter. But comparing him to what he was running against, which I mean, I wouldn't have mind having Bush again at that point either. But I don't know. It was a more personable thing, I guess, or personal opinion thing. Either way, because it's kind of funny because I remember watching Clinton talk and like the debates, and also remember watching the X Games over that summer. And what I guess that would have been 95, right? Had to be, right? I don't know. Anyway, it's just we have gone to extremes kind of on both sides in a way, is because like if you look at the like Republican Tea Party, that was an extreme right, even though it kind of wasn't, but it also was. And I honestly, okay, here's my thought. It seems like used to people voted for the candidate, not the party. And then somewhere along the way, I'm not even sure when, from what I've seen, it really feels like the 90s, 2000s. People started voting for the party rather than the candidate. Now, granted, the candidate, regardless of party, can only do so much depending on Congress, right? Because if you have a Republican president and you have a Democratic Congress, like effectively majority Democrat, he's not going to get anything done. And the vice versa is true. You got a Democrat president and a Republican Congress, he's not going to get anything done either. They just like to fight. They need to stop fighting. Fighting has caused issues over the years, over the last 30 plus years that I know of, because I've watched it. I'm not like politically inclined, so to speak, but from what I have seen since, say, 2000, 2004, we have gotten extremely divisive on political viewpoints instead of country first, if that makes sense, which is why I'm a conservative. And I'll go into that just a little bit because, in my opinion, in my view, a conservative would look at the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, all of it, everything as a whole, and be very literal with what it says. Granted, times have changed drastically. Technology, everything has progressed to an extent that the people that wrote these things could not have expected. That's a valid point. However,
Yeah, but it was also laid out so well to be more or less kind of still something today. They
yeah,
laid it out so well that it still
holds
holds
up.
its weight.
Right. It still
That's
holds
why
up.
it's a loose guideline and not like a strict type ordeal
Right.
because of the changing.
So if you look at it, like conservative is literally saying we're taking what was written as literal, to whereas like liberal or progressive is taking it as it's a framework, but it is adaptable, which I'm not even going to say is wrong because obvious things have changed so much 200 plus years, 250 plus years.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely adaptable to the time. It's meant
Right.
to be like a loose
Right.
guideline,
It's a
basically,
loose
to follow.
guideline. But my actual point here is if you look at it from a conservative viewpoint, you're going to do less damage in the long term or short term, either one, because you're not trying to view it from a lens that would kind of most likely change the meaning of what's being talked about, what's being said, which is why I've always been conservative, regardless of party. I really don't care about Republican, Democrat. I don't. I'm honestly more of an independent, to be fair. I don't care about the party as much. Although nowadays we have gotten to the point to where the party has taken over the candidate, which is a problem because, like, your beliefs, one way or the other, are to an extreme, party wise and candidate wise. Because obviously, if these people are getting nominated by their party, they're kind of like, I went blank. What's the word? Endorsing is not the word I'm looking for.
Pigeonholed?
No. Um, uh, Shoot. Anyways, we'll come back to that whenever it comes to my mind. It is what it is. It's stupid. Honestly, it is stupid because literally take what I just said and think about it. If you look at our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, our national history, if you want to go that route, from a conservative viewpoint, which I also kind of say is a synonym to preservative viewpoint, to where smaller changes are more safe than big changes. Whereas liberals, progressives kind of want bigger changes, and they often drastically change the meaning or the wording or the take viewpoint on the topics, which I honestly think is why we're where we're at, because it's painfully obvious. The left has gone so far left. The Democrats in general have gone so far left. The right, at some times, even in recent history, have gone so far right that it's very polarizing. Polarization is not good because then you have no middle, there's no central. And if we stop and think about that, okay, the US is made up of many people, they come from all over. Not everybody's going to have the same viewpoint. That's perfectly fair and fine. That's why we are who we are. But when you start moving far left, far right, the people in the middle get left out because, in all reality, I'm probably more in the middle. It's all situational, it all depends. There's no blanket statements either way. I mean, I'm not like a libertarian exactly, but I'm very close to that. I'm definitely not a progressive Democrat or a liberal Democrat by any means. So 100% for a fact, I am a conservative something, but that's just me. It's the times I grew up in, how I was raised, the beliefs that I have based on how I was raised and grew up. And I tried to, I never was heavy handed because you're perfectly valid to have your own opinions. There's nothing wrong with that. But we're slightly diverting here. There was a time, and you wouldn't be like the only generation because I guess, I mean, I'm very tail end Gen X. I'd probably be more identifiable with Gen Y millennial because I was born in 80. But we grew up without parents being around all the time. You just kind of fend for yourself. You go out, you do whatever, more or less. You go work, you go hang out with your friends, whatever, didn't matter. And then, around the time you were born, well, that kind of started to shift to where you had the helicopter parents, tiger moms, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not arguing with that per se. I'm just trying to get the point across that y'all weren't left alone to fend for yourselves as much as we were.
Right.
And that may have shaped or formed opinions and viewpoints on these topics for whatever reason. And also, social media was a massive thing for your age group because about the time you hit any kind of like reasonable consciousness there were smartphones, which means you had the internet in your pocket. That's not something I grew up with. I barely had the internet at home, like honestly. That was not the norm back in the day. Does that have something to do with this whole situation? I don't know.
I have a lot of stuff to say, so I'm about to go on a whole monologue.
Go ahead. I'll let you monologue. I'll be quiet.
I have a lot of things to cover here. We're going to hit just very briefly the social media thing again. Not as heavily. So it's most likely the people at the early stages of it, they were like, this is how I was raised, so this is what I think. And then the people towards my generation, which are the modern day voters, more or less, because there's just more here, because the older ones are dwindling. Each generation replaces the other. So once you get to basically my generation, it's to where like you see something and then that something you saw influences more than it should. Because people in my generation kind of, not all of them, but the majority of them kind of rely on social media way too much, and they take almost everything on it very, very, very literal for some odd reason. I don't understand that part. Now let's hit helicopter parenting real quick, which is what I'm pretty sure I actually had to deal with. So there were times to where I genuinely didn't ask to do anything because I knew I was going to hear no, so I didn't care. I no longer asked to go do things, which is why I didn't go do things until like 10th or 11th grade. Also, there's a whole saying for basically what you brought up earlier. Strong men create weak times, which then basically creates strong men again, right?
Yeah.
So the way you were raised, to where it was like, you're just there, you get to fend for yourself, you get to chill, you effectively get to grow. This isn't the proper way to word it, but it's gonna be how I word it. You're effectively forced to grow into your own person from a younger age, which gives you a stronger sense of self, which in turn makes you a stronger person, because you're basically like held down by your beliefs, and a man without his beliefs is nothing. Because your generation, or Gen Y, kind of both coincide because of how close you are to like the beginning of Gen Y. That generation, so it's kind of like the whole thing to where the people that raised my generation were already like strong-minded, strong-willed. They already like had their sense of self just because of how they were brought up. They were able to do this, that, and other. To where more people in my generation didn't have as much freedom because of the whole helicopter parenting thing, which is why it was easier for people in my generation to just kind of go to the internet and just kind of fall into and believe in everything that they had on the internet, which has made
everything that you
it's made our society worse.
Right. Everything that you saw or read, which is how some organizations recruited people back in the 2000s and 2010s, because people were just easily influenced by social media. But continue. Right. I just wanted to throw that in there. So go ahead. What's your next thought?
So I am probably like I'm almost a full-on direct in the middle independent.
Yeah,
I have a little bit more right leanings than I do left leanings, but it's really not that much. I agree and disagree with a lot of things on both sides.
but are you more conservative or are you more liberal progressive?
Probably a little bit more conservative because of like the whole history thing for me is massive, and I'm a strong believer in if you don't know your history, it's destined to repeat itself.
Even if you do, it's destined to repeat itself. Apparently, it
Yeah,
very
but
much seems
I would
that way.
I would rather know it to try and avoid the repeat than
Fair.
not know it and it
Yeah.
repeat itself due
Yeah.
to lack of knowledge.
That's fair. That's a very fair point. So
So that would put me more conservative because of the founding fathers and just their guidelines, their layout. The fact that the Constitution itself is so well adapted throughout the years, the guidelines were written so well that they've held up and stood the test of time, literally.
yeah,
The fact that that gets ignored 9 times out of 10 when it comes to political topics annoys me.
because they want to politicize it and say, well, you'll hear that they were uneducated. No, that's dumb. That's a stupid thought process. Go back and look at
People
who's
nowadays are
yeah.
uneducated.
Go back and look at who signed these things. Go back and look at whose names are on these documents. These aren't uneducated people. These are actually world influencers.
Just to
Honestly,
throw that out as well, we obviously take influence from that stuff because when somebody hands you something to sign, they say put your old John Hancock right there.
exactly.
Guess who signed it?
John Hancock.
The only reason we say that is because his name was the biggest.
Who
He just wrote
else's
it big and bold on it.
Who else's name was on there? Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin was on it. So to go to what I was talking about in terms of so people then they argue that they were uneducated people. People now are uneducated. The amount of times that I've actually seen people say that Edison invented the light bulb is insanity. Edison didn't invent the light bulb. He improved upon an existing idea.
Yeah, and
He
Franklin.
it, by the way.
I mean, if you want to get technical, Franklin wasn't the only one to discover electricity.
Correct.
It's all in timing. It's just like the first automobile, the gas
Actually, it's
engine,
like the discovery.
all of it,
Okay.
everything. There's been multiple people. The only thing that makes one person effectively be known is they were the first one to submit a patent. I mean,
Exactly.
for the most part, it's not 100% true. Okay, that's fair.
I mean, no, because
but
that ties into my example of Thomas Edison. That's
That
the
does ring a
actual
bell.
inventor of the light bulb. Humphrey
that does
Davy.
ring a bell. English. We're in the U.S., so we get U.S. history, right? So anybody that
History's
is
written by the victors, anyways.
yeah. I mean, on this topic, I wouldn't say we're the victors. It's just this is how we were taught. Doesn't mean it's correct or 100% true.
But just
I saw something the other day to where literally people applied for patents on the exact same day. It was literally hours or minutes apart.
quick little rundown
But it's
before
the
we
same thing.
actually move into the meat and potatoes of this episode.
Okay.
So Edison didn't invent the light bulb; he improved upon it. The discovery of America. Guess what? Christopher Columbus was not the guy that actually discovered America.
Yeah, it was not Columbus. We know this. If I'm not mistaken, it was Vikings, right? Weren't they some of the first to discover America?
They were some of the first, yes. So I'm a feedback real quick to something that you stated earlier that I have mixed thoughts on it.
Okay.
So conservative versus progressionist.
Liberals,
yes,
progressives.
Small changes aren't horrible because you're conserving what's there.
Yes.
But I also think if you focus too much on conserving, you're almost living in the past by trying to conserve too much. So there do need to be a little bit more steps forward. I just think the progressive side of it tries to go a bit too much forward too quickly. Like, small steps forward can be great. They could also be like hurtful
but
in a
not
sense,
but not
but
as
massive leaps forward would be worse.
exactly. That's my point. That's why I'm more of a conservative, because there's nothing wrong with like slowing down, taking a very minimalist view, let's say, and continuing with the status quo. Kind of. I really kind of hated to say that because that's not what I'm meaning. But looking at it, perspective, you're safer to slow down, take things as what was stated, and slowly incorporate the new age technology, ideology. I really don't even like to use the word ideology because I have a problem with new age ideology in many ways. I mean, for example, like New York recently has an effective socialist, co- communist, possibly
Oh, their governor
mayor.
or mayor?
I think it was. I
I
think
think
it
it
was
was
mayor
mayor. Yeah, I said it wrong.
on
Yeah,
on the on the ballot, and I mean, it's not like socialist parties or communist parties haven't been in the U.S. for decades. That no, they have. They've been around for a while. This is not new, but they don't get votes. And
right. You're talking
now,
about the dude that wanted like the government funded grocery store, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and the things he has said is blatant socialism, at the very least, blatant socialism. And, when people start going to extremes, well, then we start moving that way. Everybody likes to say Trump is a fascist. Well, I disagree. He's, from what I've seen, upholding the Constitution, upholding the law. Let's just slightly diverge here. Illegal immigrants should not be here. Fact.
I
If you
agree.
come here legally, fine. We have no problem. We are a melting pot. That's what we are. But you have to do it legally, period. That's it. Me and you both. I mean, I know I've played a lot of like Euro Truck Sim. You start crossing borders in ETS, you have checks. People, like, there are gates. It's just like the actual, official Mexico US border, to where they check your passport and your credentials.
Right.
But what's happening now is people are arguing that, well, they're here, they have our rights. No, no, sorry, they don't, because they are not citizens.
They're not U.S. citizens,
If you're
so
not a
therefore they
citizen,
technically don't
you
have
do
our
not,
rights.
right, you do not have these rights if you are not a citizen. I'm sorry if that offends people, but that is fact. Now, if they want to go do things the right way, no problem. Go do it the right way. I understand that it has been made harder over the years, and that is all because of all the stuff that's happened in the last 2 decades. Basically, that's the actual reason why. I mean, I've heard of people going to Canada to get their citizenship in Canada, and then they'll get a visa for the U.S. from there. Effectively, that's what they were doing, because it's just harder to do it in the
Easier.
U.S.
Did you know that there's actually like extended visas based off of where you come from? Like if you come from a predominantly white area, your visa's actually longer than if you come from a non-predominantly white area.
Now, see, I disagree with that on a whole.
I do
I
too,
don't
but
think
it exists.
that, yeah, that shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. As long as you come in here, you do it legally, whatever you need to do. I'm not strictly talking about like work visas or such, but if you want to be a citizen, just come in, do it legally. I know it takes time. I know there's a lot of effort, and I know it's a big pain in the ass, probably, from what I've heard. Also, don't try to force your viewpoints and culture onto The
The
populace,
place that you're running to?
yeah, the populace as a whole. You come in, you adapt. You basically take our views but hold your background. There's nothing wrong with you having your traditions. Fine, whatever. There's no issue there. But don't try to force them on others, which is exactly what has been happening for years now. They try to force their views onto others. The far left, the Democrats, even if you, I don't even know if I want to call them Democrats. Far left is not really Democrats. Honestly, they're not. Not from what I grew up knowing. But you can't do that. That's going to cause problems, which it is. We see it. It's painfully obvious.
Yeah, I mean,
Am I
I
wrong?
do.
I mean, you're younger. So
No,
is
you're
my viewpoint
definitely not
wrong?
wrong. I have the same viewpoint on it. A
Uh,
little bit stronger, possibly in a different way, but I'm not gonna get into it. But
I mean,
I do think like small socialism isn't like a bad thing. Like a
certain
little bit of it,
aspects.
right?
Certain aspects.
Like universal health care. That's not a bad thing.
No, that would actually be a
Uh,
good thing, probably,
other,
because, you know, just, well, healthcare tends to break people. It's a monetary drain. And
right,
I'll just throw this up. Like all the things in red, they do not have like a basic universal health care. All the things in green do. All right. All the things in blue have like a certain aspect of it. Now, and this
yeah,
this kind of leads to one of my biggest problems with healthcare, honestly. And granted, not all these places are capitalist or socialist. There's both, right? But so many pharmaceuticals are developed in the US. That's fact. But nobody wants to go get things done in the US because it costs so much. Why is something as basic as taking care of yourself an expense? I mean, I understand people have to get paid. I get that. But it is literally like financially ruining people to where hospital bills, healthcare causes them to go into bankruptcy because they can't afford to pay it. That's a problem. Just in reality, it is. That is a problem. How do we fix it? I don't know. They kind of touted as Obamacare fixing it. Yeah, I don't think it did. I mean, it kind of helps, but then you're just shifting the load onto somebody else. Although, granted,
right.
we're trillions of dollars in debt, trillions of dollars in debt. So, I mean, if you're going to do some type of national healthcare type thing, who foots the bill? If it's the government, well, that's probably not the best idea considering how in debt they are. Which, granted, everybody wants to argue, or at least we used to back in the 90s. It's like that's the debt to the American taxpayers. Like, it doesn't matter. It's still debt. And nowadays, that's not wholly true. We're literally in debt
Nowadays it's to
globally.
other countries.
Right. We're in debt globally now. But how would you fix it? And how would you accomplish the task? Because, like I've said, I'm a conservative. I'm probably Republican in basic senses, independent also. I'm not Democratic, or I'm not a Democrat, rather. So,
Well, other
just,
people, like
well,
older people, would say the easiest way to fix it would be to like just start bringing everything in house again. But I think they forget that if you pull everything in house, how expensive in house actually is. Like
okay.
stuff made in America costs way more than stuff made somewhere else.
Yeah, but socialism does the same thing. They'll make jobs to pay people money just so they have a job, so they can buy things. That doesn't work either. I mean, capitalism is fine. It works mostly, but it doesn't work perfectly. But nothing works perfectly, to be fair.
Right. On paper, socialism, communism, and capitalism are all actually very valid things.
Yes,
In
but
reality,
capitalism works better than the other two.
Yes.
The
Even
problem,
though it has its flaws.
yeah, exactly. And the problem with capitalism is that it it does push the cream to the top. Let's put it that way. However,
Yeah, it basically caters to the rich, effectively.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. However, it consolidates power with money, which is a problem. Like in reality, that is a problem. I mean, it's fine. I have no problem with people having a good idea and making money off of it and being able to live the good life. That's great. But what seems to continually happen is that the ones that don't have an idea and they just work to live, kind of get shoved
Right.
further and further down because they don't have the money, they don't have the resources, the connections, whatever the case may be, all three, most of the time, let's be real, to attain that level. Because everybody has
Yeah,
an
there's
idea. Everybody has an idea. Like, seriously, everybody has an idea that could make them money. I had one when I was 11. And like a year or two later,
it existed.
my thought was actually here. Now, granted, we run a few years behind because we're down here in the South. So it may have been out before, but I'd never seen it. I was just going off of my experience and thinking of a way to make it better. So, I mean, like a roof ripper shovel. Yeah, I had a very similar idea, not exactly what is designed and what is today, but it was similar and had the same principles when I was 11 years old. And I'm still angry about that in a way, sadly, because I could have money now if I would have done the things and gotten a patent, maybe, because mine is different. It would not be the same. It may work better. I don't know. I'd have to test it because I never, did the fabrication to test because, well, obviously I was 11. Anyway,
I'm gonna break a few things down real quick because there's a song lyric that I'm gonna kind of use as a phrase here, and there's also a few studies that I'm gonna bring up.
okay.
So the song lyric goes, "How does one man have $1 million when there are people in the streets that are broke, or have $100 million when there are people in the streets that are broke?" Chalk it up to what you will. I mean, everybody thinks if I had this much money, I would give back, and some people do.
True.
I'm not like saying everybody's all stingy and stuff once they get money, even though the majority of them are. There was also a study to where, well, it wasn't a like legit study. I guess it was more of a social experiment, you would call it.
Yeah.
To where a dude like walked around. It was done in California, LA to be specific, and it was done in New York. And a dude walked around with like dollar bills taped to him with a sign that said "Take what you need." The people that walked out of the big boy corporate offices with a suit and tie kept pulling money off of him. The people that had next to nothing that were genuinely homeless wouldn't take a dollar from him. They didn't touch it. They didn't take any of the like take what you need money at all. But the people that had money had no problem taking more.
Which is very
Greed.
odd. Yeah, that does
That
kind of go
that's
to
the
greed.
only way to describe
No,
it. It's
no,
greed.
no, 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 not necessarily. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and yes, that is greed because free money is free money. Fair enough. But you can't really fault anybody for that. It's like, hey, I'll give you 100 grand. It's like, okay, give it here. Yay. But also, here's the thing people have no problem working for their living. They, for the most part, I mean, there are some that do, yes, but a lot of people want to earn what they have. They're not given an opportunity to earn, period. I mean, me and you are both kind of in that situation at the moment to where we can't seem to get a job. And we've applied 20, 30, 50 times. There's a lot of things we got out there and we're hearing nothing. That's just stupid.
I agree.
Coming from your abilities and my abilities, what I've done, what you've done, and we never get anything back. We don't even get a no letter. That's dumb. So either here's my question, and this leads into a different topic, but we've also kind of hit on it. Are these job sites like Indeed, Simply Hired, Glassdoor? I don't even know if Monster's still around. I'm sure it is, but I don't know. Does all this get fed into basically some type of AI analytic thing? And it looks for specific things like an SEO type optimization, which I know I was redundant there because I said optimization after SEO.
Yeah.
But is that why that it never hits like human eyes to where somebody with some sense and logic would see it and say, hey, if they did this, there's no reason they can't do this. That's an
For
honest,
bigger corporations, I really want to say yes. That's probably exactly how it's dealt with.
but even not bigger corporations. I mean, I'm taking myself for example because I've applied for things that are not a stretch based on my resume. Nothing. Why? Why? Why is that? You don't hear anything. So what that kind of tells me is like HR, the hiring managers, etc., don't actually see all of the relevant applications. I know we've slightly diverted here, but it's important, and that's part of the reason we're in the trouble that we're in, like nationally, because everything kind of gets shoehorned into, a category or not a category. You check a box, you don't check a box. Well, if you check 3 out of 5 boxes, you're like, 70 ish percent qualified to do the job. I'm not saying that there's not others that would be better. That's not my point. I'm just saying you don't hear anything. It's ridiculous because I've seen multiple times throughout the last several years where people have 2, 3, 500 applications and they get a rejection letter every day. Hell, we don't even get rejection letters, dude. We get nothing. We're basically ghosted. It's stupid. So, and then let me just pile on here while we're off topic. These companies want you to give them 2 weeks notice before you quit, but they will fire you in hours or minutes. It's like, nope, get your shit and leave. What? So I owe you this, but you don't owe me this. Okay, now if you did something stupid and wrong, all right, fine. But if you didn't, well, they're really just taking advantage of you and saying, nope, we got to save the money. We don't need you anymore. The whole thing is stupid. Now, granted, I've spent most of my life self-employed. That is true. To where, you know, I will go work for people, but it's literally working for myself. I either do it or I don't. I get paid or I don't. But when you go work for a company and they're like, well, we expect you to be here, we expect you to do this, we expect you to do that, but we can let you go at any time for any reason, effectively. That's very much wrong. Now, like I said, if I went and did something stupid, went and did something egregious, something against, company policy, depending on severity, okay, fair. But just the fact that they can say, no, we don't need you, go home. But they expect you to give them 2 full weeks before you leave and go somewhere better or somewhere else. It's kind of a double standard, honestly. Which is why I have never been one in favor of companies because I know what they do. They'll use you and they'll throw you away before you get any benefits out of it other than a paycheck. Well, I worked most of my life just getting a paycheck. I had nothing else. There was no retirement. There was no vacation time, sick time, holidays, none of that. I've worked on Thanksgiving Day. I worked on Christmas Eve. We never worked on Christmas Day, where companies usually give you those days off and they'll give you, like a week of sick time. But then either you're given 2 weeks of vacation or you earn your weeks of vacation. It's fine either way. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. But just the fact that they can say, nope, get your stuff and leave. But then if you find something else, they want you to tell them 2 weeks ahead of time. It's dumb. And companies wonder why they don't have loyalty anymore. It's because you bend us over and literally screw us constantly. It's like, we need you to work overtime. Okay, well, when you work overtime, you just lose most of it in taxes. That's true. Depending on how much overtime, because you do take a hit, period. Now, if you can work overtime and not pay taxes on the overtime pay, so I mean, just for an example, say you make $10 an hour. Well, if you get overtime, well, usually, not always, overtime would be time and a half. So you're at 15. Well, if that extra $5 is non-taxable, that actually makes a difference. But if it's taxable, that just throws you up higher to where they get more money. So then your overtime, you're effectively making what? Like $12. So another $2. Okay, depending on how many hours you got. So you're like $16. If you worked 48 hours instead of 40, okay, $16. So that doesn't do anything, right? But if you worked 8 hours and got paid the whole $5 tax free, that's $40. Okay, $40. That would at least give you half a tank of gas or diesel, whatever your vehicle is. Maybe a full tank, depending on what you're driving. It's all a mess. The whole situation there is a mess. And I know that's diverting, but it's on my mind. Can't help it. Anyways, moving on. So what do you think? Do you think like the Democratic Party has moved way more to the left than the Republican Party has moved to the right? Do you think that?
It's blatantly obvious, honestly. So yeah.
I mean, it seems that way. I mean, I don't 100% know, but I would argue the point that yes, it has. It, nothing's perfect. Capitalism's not perfect. Obviously, socialism, communism's not perfect. They don't work. If there were some way to like effectively have a capitalist socialist society framework that worked, that would probably be more ideal. And I'm not talking about like private land, private business ownership. I'm talking about free market enterprise along with basic necessities, basic health care, effectively, mainly health care, because that's just something that should be universal. Because most of these hospitals and places are nonprofits, yet they cost you tons of money. Okay. Doctors went to school for what, 10 years? Fine. I understand. They need to get paid for their time. I understand that. But do they need to get paid that much? It's debatable. I mean, in my view, it's debatable. I'm not faulting them. That's what they want to do. They're helping people. That is great. No issues. But when you,
There's actually a thing in Scrubs that relates to that. Dr. Cox tells JD that pretty much all modern medicine is just like the old people that should have kicked the bucket forever ago. It just keeps them alive, but you keep doing that. That way, when someone comes in that actually is young enough to actually need your help, you're at least capable.
yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But still, that's what actually puts the populace in a problem state. Just like cost of groceries, which we're going to do a thing. We're going to do a little gaming thing and kind of have some more talks on that at some point. So yeah, anybody listening, we're going to play like a grocery store, supermarket type game, and just kind of have these conversations more on like cost of goods, et cetera, whatever. We'll see how that goes.
And for people wondering what the best mix of ideologies to accomplish anything for like the future of the US for later generations, honestly, we'll never know.
Until.
Well, yeah, it'll be a learning process.
Okay,
But
so
at the state of right now, I'm not hopeful.
okay, well, kind of on that note, I mean, I grew up, I was raised to where like work for what you get, work for what you earn. Okay. And this is what you will have. That is not true. It's not, I have no problem working. I have no problem. I overwork myself. I do things I should not do that is not really in my description, but I do them anyway. But also, that is how I went from literally inside sales to assistant manager in less than a year. But if the things you were raised being taught do not translate to the state of today, how do you like? I don't even know what word I want to use here. I almost want to say correlate, but that's not exactly what I want to say. But how do you just work through that mentally? It's like I was taught, I work hard, I'll succeed. Okay, well, you work hard, then you don't succeed or you lose your job. No fault of your own. It's just that's what it is. And that's kind of the situation. I mean, yeah, that's not a new situation. It's always happened. And I mean, even people that are graduating with degrees can't find a job for the degree they have. And it's been this way since I was in college. And I didn't get a degree because I found out what I was doing was not what I wanted to do. So I said, nope. And I was out because that was a waste. Granted, I should have stayed another 6 months. Yes, fact. But it was not what I liked. And I would not have went into that field specifically. So in effect, how do we, because we always say, all right, parents growing up, because I've heard it, you've heard it, I'm sure my parents have heard it. You always want your children to do better than you did. So how do we guarantee that y'all do better than we did? At this point, we can't. Honestly, I don't see a way with everything that is happening from the market to AI to just global economy, which I know that's market, but that wasn't exactly what I meant there. I meant national market. We're talking globally. How would you tell your kids this is what you should do so you can actually live the life you want to live? I don't know, which bothers me, and it annoys me to no end because we just talked on it. Me and you both have done things, we have experience in things, and we never get anything back from applications. Nothing. Not even a no, not even a rejection letter, just nothing. You're just ghosted. Well, so I guess maybe what more people should start doing is starting their own business, being self employed. And depending on what those are, it could be easier, it could be harder. I mean, we'll just throw YouTube out as an example. It's not easy, but if you have the right personality and the right, like, you know, things, we'll say, because there's a lot to cover there, it probably is easier. If you already have a following, it's easier to do something else. Right? Or am I wrong?
I mean, that is effectively how it works on YouTube.
I mean, it's kind of how it works everywhere, to be fair. I mean, if you stop and look at it though, like YouTube it's massive. For example, so you're competing. I mean, you're like one in a billion. Okay, in your local community, you're like one in 1,000, one in 10,000, one in 20,000. I mean, your odds are better. You know, that's what I'm getting at there. Because there's so few options, it seems like, and there's new jobs right now that don't need a degree, but then you can't get to talk to anybody even if you apply for those either. It seems like, or find them, which I'm having problems finding them, and I've looked. I'll say what I said earlier to somebody. I don't remember who I was talking to, but like we're this is a couple months ago. Usually, you know, towards the end of the school year, there will start being summer jobs posted for the, you know, the older people that are either out of school for the summer or they're graduating. It leads them into a field or not. All right. There weren't any. I didn't see any. And I've looked at online job markets for years, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, 10 years. Let's just call it a decade because that would be true. They're not there like they used to be. Why is that? I don't know. Is everybody afraid of everything that's going on, like the tariffs and like stock market and economy? Is that the why? Or are those jobs being taken over by a computer? Many of them, not all of them, just many. Because there's some things, you know, obviously AI can't do. Anything that's hands on, it's not a thing right now. AI can't do that. It's going to come, it will happen. But right now, it's not a thing. Because I'm used to seeing, like, you know, April, May, a massive influx of listings. Haven't seen them. I'm not the only one that hasn't seen them. I've seen many other areas, people talking to where, yeah, they're just not there. So what do you do to like protect yourself going forward? Do you just capitulate to this whole socialist ideology? Where it's like, all right, we'll vote you in because what you're saying is you will subsidize or give free food to me if I elect you. I mean, stop and think for a minute. It's scary that that's where we could head because, you know, Socialist Republic of the United States is very different from the United States of America that I have known my whole life. And it's not like people aren't trying. There are people that aren't trying. That's fair. But I really think that many people are trying and there's just nothing. So what you're left to start your own business, to try to make it your own way. Try to make it all by yourself. But by the time you realize that, you're probably out of capital to do it with. So then what? Well, you either have to have backers or go get a loan, which actually throws you into a bigger issue if you got to get a loan with interest rates as they are. Hopefully that gets fixed. I mean, it's what it is. I don't know, dude. I don't know. I feel sorry for you. Honestly, I do because I don't know what to tell you. Granted, you have mechanic experience. I do not. I can't stand it. So that is a very physical thing that you would be safe in for quite a while, I do believe. I have carpentry construction experience, thing I could be safe in for quite a while, but I've done gotten old and broken down from doing it for 20 plus years. I definitely have to change my mentality on how and what I did. And honestly, I never wanted to do it to start with. I just fell into it. And there were other reasons that I stayed there, but we're not doing that. So I don't know. It's a mess. I know the stock market's on an uptick. I know everybody loves to hate Trump one minute and then they'll turn around and congratulate him the next. I've never been a fan of most of what he says, but I'm more of a fan of what he does. And now he's doing both. He's saying and doing things. But he still kind of worries me. I'm not going to lie. I'll be honest about that. But in general, I agree with what he's done so far. So I don't know. How do we, because you're at the age now to where you have an influence and you have, I mean, eventually you'll find somebody and maybe have kids, maybe not. I mean, I wouldn't blame you for not, honestly, considering the state of the world. But if it was you raising kids, say you had kids, what would you tell them what to do to be able to live at least a reasonably comfortable life, along with stopping our nation from devolving into a socialist, communist nation? Because I'm going to ask this to you because I don't know. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts.
My answer on that is a very unpopular one.
Well, we're very unpopular
I,
in general. So let's see.
I would be brutally honest and just tell them that just because you try hard at something doesn't mean you'll succeed, so don't ever get your hopes up.
That is true.
Maybe you'll get lucky, maybe you won't,
That's
but
true.
it's not up to anyone to really decide, and it's most of the time not even in your control, unfortunately. Even if it's your own creation, there's still no guarantee.
Right. Because of free market. So you need a good
So
idea and it needs to succeed for you to succeed as well.
I'm not going to give the whole if you work hard, you'll be fine.
Yeah, because that doesn't seem to work anymore.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, that doesn't seem to work anymore, sadly. And there's nothing wrong with working hard. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that doesn't seem to always get you where you want to be necessarily. If you're doing it for yourself and your own thing, okay, it probably would do more. But if you're doing it for a company, nah, probably not. They just soon let you go than pay you. Honest.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a sad state, honestly. It's where we are, though. We're going to be more real about stuff and would really like for people to, listen, comment, subscribe, especially because we've said, I think at this point, like 25 subscribers, we'll start doing face cams. We'll start doing that kind of thing. And then like maybe 50, we'll try to do live. We'll see. Our internet's kind of bad, honestly. We'll give it a shot. And we're also gamers, by the way. So if you want to check Tay out, he's definitely on YouTube. What's your things on YouTube, Tay?
Weekly Marvel Rivals. I basically just cover the latest updates and do a little bit of play, and then Tay plays games.
Mm-hmm. And mine is Nailbender. It's spelled weird, but I'm pretty sure you could find it. I haven't done anything yet that's set up. I plan to release videos this coming week, actually. I'm thinking Tuesdays, Thursdays, but we'll see. I may have to push it a week depending because there's some other stuff going on family wise. I'm not sure.
We can link them in the description, though.
Yeah, we'll toss them in the description because I'm not sure what my week is going to look like, or at least the next couple of days for sure. And we'll just go from there. But I'm going to try to have at least 2 episodes up, like Tuesday, Thursday, And as usual, GenCast, we're going to come out. Right now, we're trying Tuesdays. I don't know if we're doing better on Tuesday release or not. So we may pop it back to a Monday. We may move it to a Wednesday. I don't know. We're going to try to release, say, the podcast on one of the days, do like a short out of it if there's one there, like later that night, and then do a clip probably the next day. So we're trying to get like 2 or 3 uploads a week off of this topic, whatever the topic is. So yeah, if you agree, disagree, tell us, let us know, because we need feedback, honestly. If you think the face cam's a thing, well, subscribe and tell us, hey, yep, face cam, go do it. Get after it. We'll do it. And then hopefully whenever we do try the live stream, because it's something we want to try, I just seriously have my doubts about the internet cooperating. It may be very, very laggy. But anyways, we appreciate the time, appreciate you listening. Comment, like, subscribe. Tell us you didn't like it. Let us know. So until next time, I've been me and you've been you.
Yep. We have been us.
All right, guys. Till next time.